Welcome, everyone. My name is Alberta Chu. I'm the Executive Director of Catalyst Conversations, and we're having a really special event tonight with the Boston Public Art Triennial. All around us in this beautiful little park in Charlestown, right on the water, are these sculptures by Boston artists that have been cited by the curator, Jasper Sanchez, who's going to join us later for the panel. You can explore these sculptures, and we have Peter Wayne, a Tai Chi master and Harvard professor. He is an expert. He's dedicated. He's researching movement and the brain, and he's like an expert in wellness and a Tai Chi master. So he's going to lead us in some Tai Chi. He's going to share about his research and lead us in Tai Chi inspired by the sculptures and the artworks. And then we're going to have a panel and a discussion with the curator also. And then we're going to have a picnic with sandwiches and drinks. Just wanted to welcome everyone. We have some visitors that are Tai Chi students of Peter's. We have visitors all the way from Iceland that are here that found us on Eventbrite. So this is a very special event for us to be outside in this beautiful weather with these wonderful people. So great, thanks, Peter.
How's that for sound? Good. So I have a couple notes here to work from. So thank you, Alberta, and thank you to Catalyst Conversations and the Boston Art Triennial for inviting me to this event. And congratulations to all the artists that are being featured tonight. And I've really enjoyed exploring all of their sculptures. And thank you all for showing up, and thank you to the nature gods for giving us really good weather tonight as well. So when I was asked to participate in this event, Alberta called me out of the blue. I wasn't sure why I was invited or how I can contribute. It is really an unusual request for me, and I'm still not 100% sure. But after some reflections, I realized that both as a scientist and a Tai Chi practitioner, I like to explore the unknown. So I took on the challenge, and I have a little bit of a plan for us that we can try out together. It's kind of like a N of one group art experiment. But they say when you're giving a lecture, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a blueprint for my 5-minute shtick, and then we'll do some experiential work. So I'm going to set the context by very briefly sharing some ideas, in my opinion, about how science and art are two complementary ways of knowing the world. And neither one is right. They're both different ways of doing it. And honestly, the longer I'm in science, the more I appreciate that what we do is science fiction. It's just a way of seeing the world. And I'll give you some examples. And one of my Kung Fu mates here is an art historian, so I'm going to pull an example from art history to talk about the commonality of trying to describe our world with different sets of tools. Then I want to share what I've learned both in my academic research and my Tai Chi journey about how the shapes we make within our bodies not only impact our own health, but also and how we feel, but also how we see and perceive the world. And some would go so as far as to say that the world that we create is generated by how we live in our body and the shapes that we make, what's called embodied cognition theory, work we do in our lab. Then I'm going to ask you to join in some really simple, playful Tai Chi and Qigong exercises, and we can explore our inner and outer shapes together. And they're going to be very easy to follow along. And we're going to explore how these impact not only how we feel, but maybe how we perceive the environment that we're in, the physical environment, the social environment. And then maybe after that, we can just go look at the sculptures again and go, does this change how we're perceiving the things around of us? And then finally, I'm excited to be joined by Jasper Sanchez, who I met just a few minutes ago, who's the assistant curator for the Boston Public Art Triennial, for an unscripted conversation and open Q&A about art and science and the importance of art, visual movement, musical, all sorts of artistic forms, and how it impacts how we feel and see the world. And I think these conversations that cross boundaries are really important given how polarized our society is today, and how we need to just start to be able to converse across the aisles a little bit, so to speak. not just outside, but inside as well. So for most of my life, including as a very young boy, I've identified myself as a sort of science geek. I love learning about nature, math, and all things science. And in contrast, I couldn't sing, draw, or dance, or things like that. But I remember the first time I was introduced to the idea of the lines between science and art being blurrier than I thought. And it came from reading an essay by a historian named Jacob Bronowski. Some of you may know his public TV show, The Ascent of Man. And in one of his essays, it was called The Woman and the Ermine, do you know, by Da Vinci. So it's a picture of a Victorian woman with a stoat or a weasel on her shoulder, and the weasel's got these teeth like this, and she has this very terse Victorian face. And what he said was that what Da Vinci may be portraying in there was identical to what Darwin was saying in The Ascent of Man. And I was studying evolutionary biology, so I was drawn to this essay, and that humans came out of animals. And that we're not special coming from God, but we're part of this animal kingdom, and we have these animal instincts. And he went to say that you can explain and describe the world and engage people with it in very different ways. In this case, Da Vinci doing a drawing, and in Darwin's case, collecting meticulous data and building a case. And he was really nervous about sharing this. He actually was very sick. He stayed in bed with these psychosomatic diseases and wouldn't go out because he was afraid of what the church and everyone else would say about what he was saying. And he had his friends give his lectures for him at the Royal Academy. But the key point here is that there are different ways of seeing the world, and there's no one way to describe it. And each has its benefits and its limitations. So since then, I've seen a lot more links. And in my laboratory at what's called it's an institute at the Harvard Medical School and Mass General Brigham called the Osher Center for Integrative Health. And I oversee, part of my job there is to oversee a laboratory called the Mind-Body Movement Laboratory. We study things like Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, chiropractics, all sorts of mind-body sort of practices. But one of the organizing themes in our group is what's called embodied cognition. In fact, I'm wearing a t-shirt here from our school. If you notice, it says Embodied State University. It's a subtle little joke. But, and put very simply, what this technical phrase means is that how we move affects how we feel, and how we feel affects how we move. And both of those change how we experience the world around us, right? And there's lots of really fun experiments people have done to sort of elucidate this phenomena. So for example, there's some really fun stuff done by experimental psychologists where they change the shape you sit in to watch a movie, right? So if you watch a movie like this versus like this, you can perceive a scary or a sad movie as much more scary or sad when you're in this shape than this. There's some very simple studies where you can take a pencil and do this, and because your mouth muscles do a certain thing, it activates your neuroendocrine system, and you're happier with a pencil in your mouth because you fake it till you make it. And some of this comes out of the awareness in evolutionary biology that prior to verbal language, we had a nonverbal body language. So if someone came back from the hunt like this versus like this, you'd know they're telling a different story. Or if someone put their head like this, you know they're more submissive than if they're going to be aggressive like this. So body language and the shapes we make and the mouth gestures really encode a lot of information that affects our physiology. And I remember before doing medicine, my training was in evolutionary biology. And I had the great fortune of being a teaching fellow for Professor E.O. Wilson. Some of you know him. He's an amazing human being, an amazing scientist in a lot of ways. But in his evolution course, the last lecture was on the evolution of body language. And at that time, I was a graduate student, and I had a little Tai Chi school. I'd been doing Tai Chi for a number of years, but I never put together sort of evolutionary biology and Tai Chi. And he did this lecture on primates and body language. And he showed these beautiful little clips, and he showed these primates going, And then, all these different, then he showed a woman running through a marathon tape, winning like this, and then a football thing, and then he showed the 1968 one-arm variant of this. And he said, and it still almost makes me weep, it's very hard to be sad in this shape. And it hit me, some of what we're doing in Tai Chi, we know that they say that, it's good for your depression, for example. We've got good research that I'm involved in others, that Tai Chi, and it's because your heart is moving, because you're regulating your neuroendocrine system by relaxing, you have social, but no one ever talks about the shape, right? In Tai Chi, you take these shapes. In Kung Fu, you hold these shapes, and those shapes are really different than like a Woody Allen shape, right? So the shapes, and they really hit me, and that, it took me about 20 years to start to actually study this. And I'll give you one quick example. We just finished a study a few years ago of it's a horrible condition, women with persistent post-mastectomy pain. These are women that go through the trauma of the diagnosis of cancer, then they have surgery, radiation, chemotherapy. They also are reconstructed. They either have a bilateral or a single mastectomy, and their self-image is changed. But they come out of this, 40% of women come out of this with chronic persistent pain. And that pain holds them in that story. Is this the cancer? Is it going to come back again? It reminds them of their changed body and self-image. And so we said, let's bring them into a Qigong class where they're going to be doing these beautiful stretches, they're in a circle, they're getting into their body. And what we found is we changed their pain, we changed their depression, we changed their mood. One of the things we did, and we did this down the street here at Spalding Rehab, there's a beautiful human motion laboratory there, where we looked at their body shapes with very sophisticated infrared cameras. And what happened was, over the course of the study, the shapes of these women went from this sort of sunken, defeated kind of shape to a much more upright, embodied shape. And what we found was that there was the women who changed the most in this shape from here to here were also the ones that changed their depression, anxiety, and fatigue the most. But the conclusion wasn't that this shape changes your mood or this mood changes your shape. It's that it's silly for reductionist Western thinking to separate emotion, thinking, and body, that they're all intertwined together. So that's sort of my shtick here. And I think there's some connection here between the art. I've read the descriptions a few times. I spent a little time down. Each of these incredible artists are telling a story. They're telling the story with these shapes. And they're inviting you to experience in a certain way. So what I'd like to do here is just invite us all to do a little bit of simple practice. Just what's it like to be in your body, to feel what's awake, what's not awake, what's connected, what's not connected, the shapes we make statically and dynamically, and to see if just going through this little practice makes even a little bit of a shift. And then maybe after that we can mill around a bit and just observe the community that we're in, the environment that we're in, the sculptures, and then we're going to have a fun, open discussion here with our panelists. Yeah? You up for it? All right. All right, so before we do anything, I just want to invite you all to just tune in and take stock and just notice how your feet meet the earth. I'm going to ask you a lot of things or suggest things. I want you to hear these from your gut brain, not your head brain. This is your first brain in evolution. It's not logical, it doesn't plan, it doesn't keep score. It's more like, that's an interesting thing to explore. So notice how your feet meet the earth. And maybe one foot meets it differently than the other. Maybe only pieces of your feet meet the earth. Some toes, the heel. And it doesn't matter, there's no right or wrong here. Notice how your head's sitting on top of your body, schlepping a little forward from a long week or the politics, a little stiff like a deer in the headlight, or maybe adaptable and like a bobblehead. Doesn't matter, just noticing. And maybe just tune into how the breath fills your chest. Don't try to do a perfect pranayama technique, just intuitively. Does it go a little more to the left this evening or the right? Do Do you feel it in the front or the back? How deep does it go? And so you've captured your own attention a little bit. And now we start doing a little movement. I want you to just shift your weight to your right leg and press and squish the juices in your feet. And then let shift happen, so to speak, going to the other leg. And just rock yourself back and forth. Right? And we're going to spend a couple minutes just being in the soles of the feet. This is where we meet the earth. This is the ground to our structure. So you can't build a good building without a good sill in the bottom. And we're moving in Tai Chi and these practices not because we want to get anyplace else, but we're moving to help us feel. So which parts of the feet do you feel? Which neuroreceptors are tingling? And where are the underserved neighborhoods in your feet? Does your little toe have action, big toe, top of your foot? And how do you dissolve those health disparities, so to speak, within ourselves and just start to let this warm tropical ocean kind of lubricate and marinate? Of course, we don't just care about the feet. So as this inner ocean starts moving, what we call the interstitium, moving through all the fascial tissues, feel it move through your calves and shins and connect the dots. And these move through your knees and your upper legs, starting to wake up the whole lower extremity. In Tai Chi classics say flow like water, move like a river. And it's not just poetry. You're about 60-70% liquid, but we forget. So just move that juice and let it go deeper and deeper, dissolving the little conscious and unconscious dams. Through the hips, groin, the tailbone. The Brits say that a lot of us have knots in our knickers. And so we just got to loosen up those knots and just let the feet connect to the pelvis. And the spine gets massaged and all the juices around it. Your organs float in this ocean. And you're just making waves. And on a good day, these waves make it all the way up to the cranial ocean in your brain. And we know now that the flow of the lymphatics in your brain is a really good, if they drain well and they're irrigated by movement and good sleep, there's less chance of dementia. Right? So we need to get these juices moving. Right? So I just want to introduce the yin and yang concept briefly, and then we'll move a little faster to stay warm. But I want you all to stay on, let's say, your right leg for a second. Just really feel strong there. But then, because you're there, how willing is your left leg to go on vacation and let go? Right? We forget that there's downtime. So one leg is squishing and moving things around. This leg is like a sponge that's unsqueezing and letting life back in through relaxation and just awareness, right? That's the yin. Our culture is about doing, not as much about not doing. Tai Chi balances that out. Now, as you squish this side and move things around, how far into the unsquishing yin can this side go? Just letting go, the whole side. And so you become the yin-yang symbol. Doing, not doing. Squishing, unsquishing. Active, passive, yin and yang. And Tai Chi Chuan means you embody these principles of yin and yang in boxing or movement, right? So now you can just add a little turn, be safe. Don't do anything that doesn't feel right for you. You can just modify it. And you're swinging with as much intellectual concern as a 2-year-old. So just let it go. So we're moving a little bit more dynamically now, but we're still not going anywhere. We're moving to feel. So feel your feet, feel the squishy connections. Thank you. Up through your legs and belly, your back and chest, all the way out to your fingers and brain. And without over-analyzing or judging, just noticing where you don't feel. Where are the gaps? So now we bring a little bit more vibration to the body. This might mess with the sound system. But you just take these swinging arms and you just tap yourself. Sounds like a heartbeat. These could be little love taps, or you can really just whack yourself like you're dislodging a little dust from your rug. And where you tap, you feel vibrations. Right? Vibrations help you sense. In our medicine, we use ultrasound to diagnose where things are stuck. where there's densities. But we also use it to break up kidney stones. So you're just drumming the chi and vibrating your body. Good. Now we do the same around the ribs, under your breasts. Good. Feel your feet. Everything starts in the feet, through the waist, out to your hands. And then the sides of your belly get a little vibration. And when you feel those vibrations in your body, you can make them a target for your breath. Can your breath feel those vibrational fields? So the vibrations invite the breath, and the breath carries your mindfulness in. So you start to penetrate, not just with movement, but with your inner awareness. Go back to the breastbone. You guys do a few without me whacking this. And then the solar plexus. And each of these taps touch different energy centers on the maps of Chinese medicine. And then your belly button. I do Kung Fu with a couple of my classmates here, and so we study self-defense. And I tell my students who don't look like my Kung Fu mates, many of them, that if you unfortunately ever, God forbid, find yourself on a train platform with some creeps watching you, just start doing these practices. They'll go bother somebody else. Your navel and lower back. And so where you touch, it's like self-massage. The nerves get stimulated, your attention's drawn there, blood starts to flow, nerves start to fire. And so you just have to keep waking things up. Good. And then just let that rest. And just feel the tingle in your body. That's life. And just take a second to notice where it's strong and without judgment. And maybe some places you don't feel it as much. If we had time, we would stand still for a couple minutes and just let things reorganize. But we're going to just do a little bit more movement. So I want you to just bring your hands up, and the hands are really interesting, the shapes you make with your hands, right? So stretch all the knuckles out, but just a little bit, palms facing you. See? And when you stretch them, you're just inviting feeling and blood flow and nerve activity. And then you give it a little yin rest, and when you do that, you bend your ankles and knees. Little stretch and a little letting go. And this coordination starts to teach the top and bottom to get to know each other. This is what's called motor coordination. So you're timing different parts of your body. But each time you open this up a little bit, it's like you're letting the tide seep in deeper. If you try too much, you squeeze it out. If you don't do a little bit, you might not feel where you feel and don't feel. And when I came here and saw this sculpture here, these tributaries, I immediately thought of some old work I used to do in salt marshes when I was doing evolutionary biology, just the tide going in with the yin and yang cycles of the moon and then going out. So can you feel it go a little deeper? Every fingertip, every knuckle. And then you include your forearms and elbows, right? And some really good research in our group, other groups, the fascia that connects everything and the liquid between it is where a lot of health happens. Nerves, immune system, form and function, right? So wake that up. And then your elbows start to creep up a little bit. And you start to explore these shapes, just like these sculptures here. As you're going up, you're dropping into the ground like a tree. So you feel really rooted. And don't go any place that feels uncomfortable and make you strain, right? But there's a sense of, I'm going to date myself here, of Julie Andrews on the top of a mountain going, the hills are alive, right? And these shapes change how we feel. Can you feel this in the back of your body? The heels, the places you don't look at in the mirror, the hamstrings, your buttocks, small of your back, between your shoulders, we call it thoracic park in my group. Back of your neck, just all the way up to your fingers. Each time you pulse it, you feel it a little differently. And at some point, you stop saying, I'm making my body do this. You start going, but then your body starts telling you, wait, maybe a little less, a little more to the right or left, a little slower, thank you. So this movement becomes a very respectful collaboration with yourself. And then the front of your body, the tops of your feet, the shins, the belly, the breasts, the face. So simple. A little stretch that's kind and curious. A little breath in there and a little letting go. Good. And then just let that go. Good. So the head stays on top of your feet, and we explore the equator. The bottom and top need to connect. If this is shut down, then we're not going to have as much function. So bring your belly button forward and a little bit to your left, and then back, and then to the right. And you can imagine scribing a clock face over the floor. And the point here is not to go around a bunch of times and score points on your Fitbit, but to notice how many 5-minute points you consciously can feel in your body as you go around this clock face. And when you hit some of the places that glide, you can enjoy it. If you hit some of the glued up places, don't force. Just kind of wait to be invited in. This is that respectful self-collaboration. Gentle. How many 1-minute points do you pass through? And again, hear this and process it more with your gut brain than your head. Our pith instructions are, can you feel your feet on the earth? Is your head bobbleaceous or is it stuck? We recommend breathing all the time. And can you hear these instructions and not think as much, just a little less? And then you go the other way, and that goes for doing hip circles, doing Tai Chi, or having an argument with a friend. Practical skills. Good. A little bit of movement in the spine. Be careful here. Right? It's called spinal cord breathing. You open up, and it's as if my front of the body is like a sail, right? And the wind's coming from behind, and I'm not a sailor, but you don't want any luff or wrinkles. So you just, from your pubic bone through your chest and face, you open that whole front plane. But you don't look like you're getting mugged and you're fearful. So you're like a tree that's rooted, and the wind is blowing, and you're like, oh yeah, that's good. All the way out to the fingers, the webbing of the hand, right? And then as you sit somewhat vertically, the wind comes from the front, and your back sail opens and widens and lengthens, and you squat a bit so your pelvis gets some work. And then you just do everything. It's the same theme, yin and yang, opening the front, relaxing the back, gently, about 60-70% of your effort, opening the back, relaxing the front, sinking. Good. Dropping into the earth even as you rise up, connecting to the earth like a tree. Open the webbing of your hand and relax the wrist as you sit. And just do a few more on your own. Gently. Listen to your body. Maybe one more time, gentle opening. Feel all your fingertips. Feel all your toes. See if they're connected. And same thing on the bottom. Let your arms go. Put your brain to some good use and let their weight lengthen your neck a little more. And staying grounded like a tree, just bring your shoulders over your hips. And as your head unfurls, almost like that spiral behind you, just each vertebra coming up. Find that place of balance where it's almost like the honey in your jar that's been upside down can ooze through your chest into your belly. So even though you're upright, what they call your chi or sung happens, there's a sinking. And the more you let go to gravity, the taller you get, because this stuff up here starts to relax. Good. Okay, we're going to do one or two more traditional Tai Chi moves just to finish up here. So start on your left side. Your weight's there, and your left hand is like a really beautiful calligraphy brush. That might make sense to a lot of you people here. It's not like a brush that's been in your basement in paint dried out for 12 years with rigor mortis, right? It's really boingy. and find your navel. You can do this. Put your right hand up, and on 3, stick it in your belly button. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, drop it. This one. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, how many of you honestly hit with both hands? Not many. How many hit with one hand? So this is what one of my first Tai Chi teachers call the Naval Academy test. And it illustrates an interesting, we don't even know where our belly button is. And our left hand thinks it's in a different place than the right hand. So we need training. Okay, so now you've got, and this is, we're gonna do some painting on belly button height. So in the traditional Tai Chi training, you do calligraphy, right? So your hand is smearing a little calligraphy ink as you shift to the side. Then you let the brush flip over and the back of the hand paints just straight lines. And the teacher knows if you've been gripping the brush too strong or you're tightening, because the shape of the art reflects the movement. Right? And you just, and this might not work for some people. We did a study at Hebrew Senior Life with some very beautiful older people, and I kept trying calligraphy, painting, and nothing was working. And then one day I realized, oh, it's like smearing a bagel. And it's like God came down and like, oh, smearing. So metaphors are important, both in art and in Tai Chi. So you smear. And then we're going to go right into a bagel or an oval, those Zen ovals. So you go across, and then the wrist comes up and you paint across your heart this way. And then it comes down. And this is continuous circle. No one knows where the beginning, middle, or end is. There's no start or stops. And you want to be present at each point, and each finger's touching. But then you start to paint with your whole forearm, like a long brush. And you put a little heart chi in it, so you connect this with your heart. Then you connect your guts to it. It's a little bit like a Sigourney Weaver alien model, your arm coming out of your stomach, but just painting from your guts. And then the Tai Chi classics say things like, good movements start beneath your feet, they're steered by your waist and administered by your hand. And so you're painting with your whole body. And you're trying to melt any blocks that prevent your full expression. And then your hand comes to your shoulder, turns over, and like a parachute that's really delicate, it rides the air, but you're not sure where it's going to land, but you feel the air. You have time to notice your neck, your breath, you feel the earth, and maybe it comes to a place of rest, maybe it doesn't. Okay, we'll do this arm next year. No, we'll balance. These jokes get better, folks. You can ask my students. I haven't seen her in about 20 years, and she's like, yeah. Good. And then to give you a sense of why this is rich, it's not just the individual movements, but we challenge this presence, this precision, and also letting go with more and more complex movements. So those of you, some of you know this, but you do these out of phase. And we're doing some nice research that shows Tai Chi is not just good for balance and pain, but cognitive function. Presence, a lot of reasons for that. Got some experts up here I can see. Good. This is called wave hands like clouds. And even the names instill words. If we say earth, your physiology makes you kind of feel down. If we say sky, so the words, the poetry, the metaphor changes your physiology. Language, form, and function. Pretty interesting. A lot of animal forms and movements in Tai Chi and Qigong. Good. But details are not as important as the spirit. So you can just imagine you're at a Grateful Dead concert, and as Martha Grimm says, dance like no one's watching. Just let it happen. Okay. And then both hands turn into those parachutes. And you collaborate with yourself. You don't check out, you don't control, but you're just kind of that yin-yang in-between conversation. Neck's loose, breathing, feel the earth coming into your body. Good. Okay. We do one more, just to challenge people, warm you up. And okay. This one's called the crane, and it's got a 4 count. Okay. So 1, your wrists cross. 2, they fall. 3, the wrists come up, but not your shoulders. You don't want to do what we call the Nixon, like this one. Keep your neck long, and then your hands come down. So 1, 2, Stay grounded like a tree, and you're really just playing with feeling the left and the right, the up and the down, outer parts, the inner parts. Good. Breathing, and like a crane, the sense of soaring, opening your wings, opening your heart while you're grounded. And that feeling of flying, grounded but flying. Again, don't compromise yourself, toes down is fine. Just enjoy the ride. Breathe, let go. Left and right, bottom and top, front and back, mind and body, breath, all working together. Good. Okay, hands come around. Scoop a little magic from the sky. Imagine beautiful sunshine and healing energy from nature. And your hands are, it's like your hands are soaking in a cloud above the mountain, fountain of youth. And it just, all of a sudden they start warming up even though it's cold out, and tingling. And it feels so nice. You bring this down and touch the top of your head, your face, your skull, but it moves through every blood cell, muscle, bone, nerve in your organ. It's like multivitamin chi from nature, just infusing into your mind-body fabric, through your chest, through your belly, through your tired legs, all the way down into the earth like a tree. You just let it go through you. Don't overthink it. You've seen the bumper stickers, meditation, it's not what you think. It's the same with Qigong and Tai Chi. Connect, imagine, play, and then like a 2-year-old go, ooh, that feels nice. Deeper and deeper, deeper and deeper. And the tiredness and the tension get filtered out like a French coffee press. And when it gets filtered through your legs into your roots, into the earth, it gets recycled. You let it go. Good. Maybe 3 more times on your own. It's called washing yourself with chi from the heavens. Connecting yourself. If you're cold, bring a little more warm sunshine in. If you're tired, bring a little perky energy in. Breathe it into your deepest, most intimate places. And again, use your gut brain to hear this and shape it. Less of stuff between your ears. Good. And now we're just going to be like a tree, and we're going to drink a little earth. Scoop it up all the way out to our twigs and branches. You can use these trees as models. Just let life flow through you. Awesome. Even as you're coming up, you're relaxing into the ground to feel your roots. 2 more times. And then we're going to finish with a way of balancing the two. It's called a trilogy. So your hands come over the top. And we invite a little of this heavenly chi to wash through us, connecting us to the earth. Most traditions, the king or the queen is like the tree that connects heaven and earth. Right? And then the earth comes up, just at the chest here. And then our hands come to our belly, and that's where heaven and earth meet, our mind and body in the belly. You rub your belly a little bit. Rub your kidneys a little bit. And you guys are all just a little bit weirder. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, everyone. We'll just have our little panel discussion and Q&A. Jump in with your questions at any time. This is a dialogue and a conversation with everyone. So Jasper Sanchez is the curator with the Boston Public Art Triennial, and worked to cite these artworks here, working with these artists. Can you talk a little bit about what went into the development of these artworks? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hold it close. Very close.
Okay.
Don't be shy.
I was just asking Jasper if he could share his experiences as a curator working with the artists to cite these works and to develop them.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Jasper Sanchez. I'm the assistant curator with the Triennial, and I work very closely with the three artists whose artworks are on view here today. I'll just briefly name them. The very vibrant and colorful flagpole is a piece called Today is the Day by an artist named Andy Lee. And if you've read the sign and paid close attention to those flags, it's an artwork that's about finding cause for celebration and the everyday. And it was really inspired by the Navy Yard's history as a military site, as a site for procession, for flag raising. I'm excited to talk a little later with Peter about movement and the engagement with these artworks, but I'll leave it at that for today's day. In front of me or behind all of you is a wooden sculpture by Alison Crony Moses called This Moment for Joy. This Moment for Joy, building upon Alison's practice, is really inspired by the joy of Black women in her life and Black mothers in her life. It's inspired by them dancing and moving and shaking their hair. And then to my right is this incredible reflective sculpture in the shape of a storm drain that's over a rain garden in the shape of our local water bodies, the Mystic River and the Charles River, as they converge into the Boston Harbor. And that piece, it's called Convergence Forest Futures. It's about our relationship to water in hydrologic cycles. Part of my task was sort of putting a ribbon on this, tying it all together with a thematic framework to present it, which is hinted at in the larger text to the main exhibition sign to my left. And after sitting with the artists and thinking about what each of them were asking us to do, I realized that they were really inviting us to pay close attention to these smaller moments in our life, small accomplishments, things like folding your laundry, calling your mom, drinking enough water, the joy in our life that we have with our loved ones, our children, our mothers, our family members, and our friends, or even the water that sustains us every day. So I start all of my tours with this quote, and I'll share it as well to ground us, by an incredible journalist and author, Krista Tippett, who writes, "Wholeness does not mean perfection. Being whole will not mean that we are less strange, but that we turn and structure towards what is life-giving, that we can become conscious of our complexity and our strangeness and work with them, as creatures who also have it in us to become wise." And I really thought of that quote when you were sharing some of the fundamentals of Tai Chi and yin and yang, and finding that wholeness and balance in our bodies is something that these three artworks also really touch upon.
Well, first, Krista Tippett's I'm a big fan. She's a very wise woman and does incredible interviews. But yeah, it's just so interesting because I think the themes that you spoke to intuitively are the themes that we do in trying to bring health to people, making them whole, feeling where they're disconnected from themselves, and to appreciate that life emerges out of things coming together. I was touched in my early conversations with some of the people from the Catalyst conversations, and in the heart of Tai Chi, yin and yang, they say yin and yang, when they come together, it's the mother of 10,000 things. One and one doesn't equal two always. One and one can have synergy and create something much more than the sum of the parts. And I think my sense is, and I started realizing this more and more after agreeing to do this, but not knowing why, that these catalyst conversations are bringing art and science together. Yin and yang, different ways of seeing the world. And I think that's what we really need now. We need to bring the different parts of ourselves together to be whole and healthy, different parts of communities and ways of thinking, to see what we can create as a whole more than pieces. And these sculptures and the implicit meaning that is trying to be conveyed, I think, capture that beautifully.
Oh, did you want to mention a little bit about the Beatriz Cortez piece also?
Yes. Absolutely, and it's something that has come up in conversation earlier with some of you. I was sharing this. This exhibition, these artworks are part of this smaller exhibition called LotLab, and it's culminating 3 years of presence here in partnership with the Navy Yard and us, our organization, curating site-specific temporary public artworks. But this is just a small glimpse of what there is all over the city. So we are a citywide exhibition that just opened at the end of May, and we have over 20 projects all over the city of Boston in neighborhoods ranging from East Boston to Mattapan, from Dorchester and Roxbury to the Fenway Back Bay area, and even here in Charlestown where you're all seeing. And so one of our artworks, if you go on a short walk down this pier behind me, it's Pier 3 of the Navy Yard, is by an artist named Beatriz Cortez. She's an El Salvadorian artist who's primarily known for her sculpture practice. And she's really interested in temporality and the cycles of life and how Earth is turned into steel and refined and polished, and then hammering the organic feeling and sense out of that steel to recreate those sculptures. I mean, it's in the shape of a whale vertebrae, but it also looks like a UFO. That piece was actually created and curated by Pedro Alonso, the artistic director of the Triennial, who I give credit to really for his artistic vision. And it was led by this theme that Pedro and our team set of the exchange. When we were tasked with the first ever citywide public art triennial, Pedro and our team were really thinking about what Boston is doing, what it means to represent Boston and try to put it on the map as an international art city. And this idea of the exchange come out. Pedro spoke a lot about how Boston is a city of experts. There's, of course, our institutional experts, folks at MIT, Harvard, Northeastern, but there's even deeply embedded community experts. The person who works at a food kitchen, has been there for 20 years, knows the name of everyone on the block. That is an expert. And so this triennial was built around this idea of exchange, and a lot of the artists actually have been in conversation with scientists and with researchers to inform their work. So Beatrice's piece down on the end of the pier is called Nomad 2, and that artwork is actually inspired by a research trip that she took to Antarctica. And while she was over there, she encountered a boneyard of whale skeletons, and she was completely struck by this. She thought about how our civilization, our industry, really heavily relied on whale oil to the point that they were nearly hunted to extinction. And then we discovered oil flats, and the Industrial Revolution began, and we pivoted away from this reliance on whales. But there's still the remnants of that in our natural world and in our built environment. So the piece she has created, those are the cannons from the USS Constitution. They go off at sunset every day. Just another thing. And so the piece she created is called Nomad 2. It's an ongoing exploration of whale and the whale vertebrae and what it means to extract this material, this resource from this living being, but also how that goes back into the earth and continues the cycle of I think, our natural environment.
Wow.
Thank you for reminding me to share more about Beatrice's project.
Yeah. So these artworks all seem to be expressing joy and lifting us up, and like a practice of Tai Chi also, it's all kind of an expression of humanity. How have you been like affected by these artworks, like when you experience them? And my question for Peter is like, how has your Tai Chi practice evolved over the years? Like, how did you feel about it? How did it affect you in the beginning, and now that it's a part of your life and you do it a lot, and you know, like how is it different for you now?
It's a challenging question. You go. Something that I think about a lot as a public art curator is our relationship to public space as we navigate the world. For some of us, that's very difficult to ignore, the way you're perceived and seen through space. For some, it's something you barely think about. And our director, Kate Gilbert, talks about the power of public art to encourage people to tap into their built environment, the world that's around them, find moments of joy or awe. And I'm very guilty of this as someone younger who looks at my phone a lot while I'm walking on the streets. Working in public art has changed how I navigate the world. Instead of looking down, or even as you mentioned, being slouched as I walk or explore, these are artworks, not just here but everywhere, that encourage you to look up. We've got flagpoles, we've got sculptures. I love Evelyn's piece. It has a reflective surface that reflects the sky. So you're looking down, but then you want to look up. And so my relationship to the world, I think, because of public art, it encourages deeper looking, especially in a world where attention is a commodity. It's difficult to navigate our capitalist world and the world of advertisements and everything that exists. And sometimes our works ask us to slow down when encouraging or exploring our public space.
That's beautiful. And this whole idea of making people look and just notice and sort of disarming them from their routine or some habitual way of being or disconnected. You see something, you see a piece of art. I was in Washington last spring, and they have these little homes in the flower beds, and you turn the corner, and it just makes you stop and read a poem, and it completely brings you to that moment. And I joke with my students, you asked about how these practices have changed for me, what I try to accomplish in myself and in others. And I think more and more, it's not a state, it's being in the journey and noticing and looking. And so I joke, it's like, that obnoxious guy, like, hey, what's that? You look down and I made you look. Most of what I did with you guys was like, can you feel your feet? Are your feet connected to your calves? What's going on in your neck? Have you breathed recently? It's just continuously asking people, like the bus tour guide, on your right is yourself, and just to bring you into the moment. That moment might not be happy. That moment might be just experiencing true grief. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there. And it's important to just look and notice and break out of the habitual stuff. More often than not, I think over time, as people notice, they can notice what's underneath that and what's underneath that. And a lot of what we feel is being shaped by sort of like false peaks, false patterns that we're not even aware of. And we notice those, and something underneath that might reveal itself. And you might even be at peace being sad, but you're at peace. But you're also happy sometimes. But I think there's something very parallel to what you were saying, Jose, about just looking and noticing. And I think art just sometimes can just stop you in your tracks and shift something. You hear a note in music that just disarms you, and it brings you closer to the real moment, the authentic moment that's unfolding. And mindfulness is, Thich Nhat Hanh said, mindfulness is the serene encounter with reality. And in a lot of my classes, sometimes, people are waiting, and I play with that. I'm like, what are you waiting for? Do you think the next moment's more important than this one? Class starts whenever you show up. It's, this notion of something else, getting someplace else, or living in the past. That's human. We have this gift of a brain that could feed forward and reverse and give us some insights into how to do things differently. But in our culture, we have so much of that we're never in the moment. And I think art can just bring us there, and I think these movement practices, some people can't sit still. So just notice how you're not sitting still. I come to class, and people can verify for this. I don't come in happy. I'm all stressed out from doing relaxation research, in the lab, and I'm tired, and it's Monday, and people are like, oh, he's had one of those days. But I'll teach from being tired. I don't try to not be tired. And then eventually, not fighting that, something shifts and falls away, and I always feel better after class. But it's just about trying to move towards authenticity and looking, just like you said so well.
Wow, so then the artworks can help us shift our presence into the present moment, and Tai Chi also can do something similar.
But I'll add to that, I think there's a very different experience between seeing a visual artwork in an institutional context, on a wall, something you look at, and versus public artwork and being a spatial experience. Of course, you can encounter sculptural works in the museum and see it in the round, but a lot of my conversations with these artists are about the experience of being in space with the work and seeing it, not just as a painting on the wall, but something that you can touch, something that you can walk around. So I loved hearing about your close attention to our movements and our bodies and what that makes us realize. I love Andy's piece because it's designed to be hoisted. I saw many of you hoisting it. And when we first put that project up, we spoke a lot about how good it feels. Just the slack and tightness of that rope as you hoist it and then raise that flag. There's an experience there. Raising your arms up is something you mentioned. You can't do that and not feel happy. And I think that was intentional with the creation of that work. And even Allison's piece behind us, that wooden sculpture, it's designed to want to be touched. She wants folks to run their hands in slats around it. She imagined kids running in circles around it, running their hands up and down it. And that's something that is really at the forefront of these artists' thought process as they think about the body and space and engagement with it. And even in public artworks, something as simple as a mural, it makes you turn your neck and look up. depending on the size of it, of course. But really, it's a different embodied experience.
Just to add to that, at some point in Tai Chi training, you move from practicing by yourself to practicing with others. So first you're in a group, and that's interesting because you're part of something bigger. And it's something that we're starting to realize now. People feel isolated, and being parts of churches, being parts of groups is really important. Moving together, we don't fully understand it, but a special sauce starts to happen. There's an energy in the group, and we're trying to, in good neuroimaging work going on down the street, they do what's called hyperscanning. And so a therapist and their client will have brain being scanned at the same time with EEG, or sometimes even in an MRI tunnel, there's communication. And if you were my therapist and I said, and then my cat got hit by a car, and you're like, you're not tracking me. Or if I said that and your empathy waves started sinking in mind, that's an indication that there's concordance and there's going to be a good therapeutic encounter, that connection. And I can only think that the flock effect in Tai Chi, that being part of something bigger. But the other piece I wanted to talk about, this interaction and touching, is this sort of haptic way of feeling your way around. And so if we put our wrists together, we start to listen to each other. And they literally call it ting, listening energy. But you listen with your whole body. And it's really interesting because people are like, oh, I'm at peace, I'm relaxed, and someone does this, and it's like, and it reveals so much of yourself to make yourself vulnerable, to feel how you feel in the presence of another. Can you be with yourself when you're with another person? And so these two-person exercises, a gentleman was asking about sparring, that gentleman back there. And I said, it's fun, it's practical self-defense, but you learn a lot about yourself as you touch and interact with other people. So you do some wrestling, you're grappling, but there's people dancing, but I think touch in our society is so diminished. There's been some studies of what happens in a coffee shop in Puerto Rico versus New York. In Puerto Rico, there's like within an hour, the same numbers of people, there's something like 386 touches. And in New York, people just don't go near each other. We've lost that way of feeling our way through the world. And I think that touch brings us into the moment if we use it that way. And then we can kind of look, as we said before.
Wow, thank you.
Should we open it up to questions?
Yeah, let's open it up to questions. Do you have questions for either of our speakers?
Peter, this question is for you. I'm curious, in your Tai Chi practice, do you often differentiate, let's say, the outcome of your daily practice if you're outdoors versus indoors?
That's a great question. Part of our research group at the Osher Center. So my background is in studying trees. My degree is in evolutionary biology of plants, and I studied forests and then climate change. And then I gave up on that. No one was listening in climate change, and I thought I was really interested in Tai Chi. I'll take my love of science and shift it. So that was about 25 years ago. But I've come full circle, and we've started a new program in the links between personal health and planetary health. And in terms of art, we just have an exhibit. It's at 850 at Boylston at the Ambulatory Care Center for Brigham. It's a beautiful installation developed by some artists and activists and scientists at the University of Michigan. But it has pictures of lungs, and it talks about the health of lungs and pictures of clouds and sky. And how can we separate ourselves from nature? And we know now from good research, not just art, but being in nature. Like I live across from a reservoir. If I have a hard time, I'll just take a walk. I might even have a conference call in nature. But being exposed to nature, there's really good randomized trials now and physiology showing people shift. There's something about it. We don't know if it's visual, if it's cognitive, if there's special volatile compounds in forests and things like that. But there's forest bathing that comes out of Japan, but also just other nature exposure. Some beautiful programs taking young cancer survivors into the wilderness for 3 weeks. And they come back so different, and there's no drugs, no behavioral therapy that sort of match what they're doing there. So it is a good question. Doing Tai Chi out in nature, would it make a difference? In the old days, yeah. When I've visited China a few times, it's like people outside a rock concert just waiting to get in at 5 o'clock at Plum Blossom Park in Beijing. You know, they're all rubbing their kidneys and they go to their place in nature and they do it. And the air pollution is terrible during the day, but in the morning they're out in nature, and that's a good time to do it. I don't know of any studies that have done Tai Chi in nature versus non-nature, but there's experiments. Even just having a bed in a hospital with a view of a tree makes you heal faster and get out faster than not having that view. So I can only imagine. That being said, there are things you can do personally indoors that's intimate and safe in a certain group of people that's really hard to do outside. And you get out in nature and it's great, and the bugs start going and the grass is not right, and so it's not always perfect, but yeah, I think all things being equal, there's a lot of supportive healing energy in nature.
Does anyone have a question? Anyone? Oh.
Hi, thank you so much both for coming and talking. It's been a really wonderful evening. I was wondering about that piece specifically and the process of making it. Was it the artist who sort of constructed it completely alone, or was it a collaborative team process? I'm an art historian, and I imagine that putting together a piece like that alone versus in a community really shifts how we read it and how we might interpret it and feel around it.
That's a great question. Thank you for thinking to ask that. I also studied art history, so good job. This piece, Evelyn by training is an illustrator and a draftsman. She teaches drawing courses and intro drawing courses at Mass Art. She's been there for many years. Like many public artworks, it's corny, but it takes a village. This is really a labor of love between dozens and dozens of people. From the engineers who take her pencil drawings and bring those to life and make them mathematically accurate and safe and sound for folks to climb all over if they choose to the metal fabricators who we work with. This was created by a crew called Mystic Scenic. And those metal fabricators then work really closely with the artist to help execute this fabrication as closely as possible to how she first envisioned it. So in this way, the artist didn't, go into the shop and actually make the metal components, but she's in a dialogue. So she, the gradient that you see, the light blue to dark blue, she took a photo of the sky and then sampled those colors, those shades of blue, sent them to the metal shop, and they provided her sample metals of that color. She got to pick that process. For the leveling, there's a conversation about making sure that it's perfectly flat so it reflects the sky without having a funhouse effect. So that's a strange creative and engineering conversation. We're talking about putting brackets below the earth to make sure that it's perfectly level. And then even the ground, Evelyn, as an illustrator, when she first spoke about this project, she spoke about it as a drawing in the ground. She wanted the rain garden and these bioswales that are extending from it to look like they were cut into the earth by one giant artist, right, with a pencil drawing on the ground. And for that, we actually worked really closely with a landscaping crew. They're called All Gardens Inc. They're based out of Cambridge. They're an ecological landscaping company. And again, that's a dialogue between the artist and the landscapers who then work really closely with her to help execute her vision. So we actually created foam board in the shape of the rivers at scale. We put them into the ground with lawn staples, and then our landscaping crew came in and removed all the sod and dug in and cut around that foam board to create that shape. And the artist herself designed that shape that was then blown up and cut into the ground.
Yeah. Wow, so it's so collaborative.
Yes.
It takes everything, and every collaboration starts with a conversation. So I guess with that, we'll finish up. It's getting cold. It's a little late. Thank you so much, Peter and Jasper, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for being
We
here.
learned so much from you. Thank you for everyone for coming. And we'll hang out and have more drinks and,
And I'll
Okay,
make a
thank
final
you.
plug, if I may.
Oh, and thank you to all the volunteers and board members and ambassadors. Thank you so much.